Hi everyone, TJ here. And you know what question to this day still confuses me about Old North? Who built the church? We get that question a lot from visitors, and for a few reasons, it's a hard one to answer. So, once again, it's time for me to be 99% sure about something. We know the basic facts. Old North, officially called Christ Church, was built in 1723. This was after King's Chapel, the only other Anglican church in Boston, had become overcrowded. The funds for the building came from subscriptions, sort of an old-timey GoFundMe. And they just barely made it across the finish line in 1723, by the way, with the first service being held on the last Saturday in December in a sanctuary that was only half finished. As to who built it, this may or may not come as a surprise, but we aren't sure. First off, the phrase "who built something" can be framed a lot of different ways, but I think most visitors mean who was the architect. Fortunately, we do have some sort of answer to that. As far as we can tell, there wasn't one, or at least not officially speaking. Now, if you're asking yourself, why can't anything just have a simple answer, I hear you on that. But no blueprints or other indications of an architect have been found, which is odd considering all the minutiae in the records that they did decide to keep from that time period. Now, the building does look very similar to churches built by Sir Christopher Wren in London, so some people believe that the builders may have had a book or print of his work and did the best they could to mimic that. Maybe this is a bit of an exaggeration, but I do love that the oldest church still standing in Boston was basically the builders eyeballing it from a picture. Some names have been suggested for the people who helped direct the craftsmen to make it look like a Christopher Wren church. Most compelling to me is Anthony Blunt, who orchestrated the purchase of the land for the church and seemed involved with most transactions early on. William Price is often suggested as an alternative, and he definitely designed the original steeple, which is the most iconic part of the church, but that was 17 years later. Either way, there doesn't seem to have been an official architect. But that answer doesn't quite capture just how interesting this question can get. First off, what if we think literally? Who built Old North? Well, Thomas Tippin and Thomas Bennett led the carpentry work, while Ebenezer Clough, the name might sound familiar to those of you who have visited our site, and James Varney were the masons. And this doesn't include the named and unnamed laborers who assisted them. They all physically built Old North. Another complicating factor here is the problem of rebuilds, redesigns, and repairs even. Few buildings remain a static idea forever, and Old North did not remain unchanged either. The steeple is a great example of that, the thing that most people imagine when they think Old North. It was added 17 years after the church itself was built, and throughout its history, the steeple had a bad habit of collapsing during storms, so a number of people have rebuilt it. So while most of the brick of Old North is 1723, the wooden steeple you see today is the church's third, dating to 1955. And I would argue that those who rebuilt it have certainly helped build the church. There were also major redesigns to the sanctuary in 1806 and 1912, with countless smaller alterations in between and after. Those later architects and craftsmen could also have a claim. We could go on with all of that, but beyond who literally built the church, what if we look at things a little more figuratively as well? For instance, those who contributed to subscriptions for each building project. Time and time again, their funds made the church's existence possible. Or how about all of the iconic items that make the church look the way it does? The bust of Washington, the organ, the carved angels. Those were mostly donated or built by congregation members and have, in a sense, helped make the church. And lastly, what about the idea of Old North, symbolically speaking? Did Revere help build Old North as the symbol it would later become during his ride? Or maybe the lantern holders? Did Longfellow figuratively build Old North with his poem? Maybe you're rolling your eyes, but would it be a historic site today without these people? So who built Old North? As with most things in history, it was a collaboration among an active community, and the church continued to be built both as a building and as a symbol. And at the risk of being sentimental here, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say Old North continues to be built today. It's built by the thousands of visitors that come to the site and in a very real way contribute to its preservation for the present and into the future. It's built by the congregation who have sustained and continue to sustain Old North over its 300-year history. And it's built by the employees who today work to interpret, preserve, and staff the historic site and keep its history alive and relevant to the public. I may only be 99% sure about most things in history, but I'm certain about this. Old North was never a static, unchanging idea. It was a collaboration over its 300-year history, and that continues today, physically and metaphorically. So thank you, everyone, for helping build this place. You are, quite honestly, forever a part of its history. As always, you can continue to shape history by supporting us. Link is in the description, or by sharing our content with others. We will be back shortly with more things that confuse me in our next episode of 99% Sure.